The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everyone, this is Wisdom Cole, the National Organizing Manager for the Youth and College Division. Thank you for being here on time for tonight's Region 2 webinar. We're going to give about 5 minutes for folks to get on. I see that folks are still signing on right now, and so, but thank you again for being here on time. We're going to give it just about 5 more minutes. For folks who are just signing on right now, we're going to give it about 5 more minutes to allow a few more folks to join our webinar tonight. Again, my name is Wisdom Cole. I'm the National Organizing Manager for the Youth and College Division, and thank you for joining us on time. Hey, Antoinette, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yep, perfect. Julie, can you hear me?
Testing 1, 2.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And Karen, can you hear me? Do you have a mic that you can speak into, Karen?
Hello?
Oh, Karen?
No, it's Akia.
Oh, Kia, I got you. Sounds good. Hey.
Hi.
So for folks who are just signing in right now, we're going to start in about 2 minutes. But again, thank you for joining us on time.
Hello, Winston, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, so I had to dial in my phone. Okay, I dialed in. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. We're going to get started with our webinar for tonight. Thank you all for joining us so much. Again, my name is Wisdom Cole. I'm the National Organizing Manager for the Youth and College Division. This is the 9th Youth and College webinar that we have had this fall, going over everything from voter registration to voter education to messaging. So tonight we will actually be talking about how to go from voter registration to voter education. So tonight what's going to happen, we'll have greetings from some Region 2 leaders. We're going to recap some voter registration tools. We're going to talk about databasing voter pledge cards, and I'll talk a little about what pledge cards are and how to get access to those. We'll be talking about voter education tools, and then we will have some field examples from Region 2 from our Connecticut State Conference. At the end, there'll be some time for question and answer, and then we'll adjourn at 10 p.m. Again, for the most up-to-date information about what's happening with the NAACP Youth and College Division, definitely follow us on our Instagram page at NAACP_YC. All right, so first I'd like to introduce Raven Waters, who is our NAACP Region 2 National Board Member. She's here to speak a little bit about her role as the Region 2 Board Member, as well as what they've been doing in New York at the state conference. Raven, you're on the line.
Hello, everybody. I just want to say thank you for taking your time out and getting on the call. I just wanted to say I'm loving all the likes, you guys. I just wanted to say it's a very serious election this year. We need to get our friends and families out and get out to the polls and vote. As our president and CEO, Derek Johnson, said at the New York State Conference this past weekend, is our vote is our currency in the democracy. So if we don't get out to the polls and vote, we just gonna be broke. And nobody likes being broke. And nobody likes to complain. So get out to the polls, do what you have to do.
I'm on a call.
And vote.
Hi.
So in other words, I just like to say I can't wait to hear about all the other civic engagement work that you all are going to be doing soon. Hopefully this webinar will help you a lot in any questions that you may have. And I would love to hear about the future conventions that you're going to have and workshops and tabling. Make sure that you send all your photos to the NAACP Instagram and make sure you database all your information for your voter registration. I'm pretty sure that Wisdom's going to hit on that in the webinar, but I'll just like to make sure you know that databasing is very important because that's how it helps us to help you on the ground. That's how we provide the resources to you and the giveaways that you all want to give to your members. So thank you so much, Wisdom, for this time to talk, and let's get started.
Thank you so much, Raven. I appreciate that a lot. Next, I'm going to introduce Karen Blanding, who is our Region 2 adult rep. Karen, is your microphone working?
Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, you can hear me? Okay. Okay. Okay, yes, hi. This is Karen Blandy. Said I'm the Region 2 National Youth Work one.
Just to echo
Like I
some
said,
of what Raven said, tonight we will be talking about registering and databasing as well. So while I get Karen on the line, I think it's really important that, as Raven said, that databasing allows us to think about voter contact and how we are contacting the folks who are in our database for information. So I have Karen Blanding right here on the line. She's going to speak a little bit and introduce herself.
Okay, hi, yes. I'm Karen Blanding. I am the Region 2 Adult Rep on the Youth Work Committee. As I said, I know many of you, but we're hoping to get out. What I'm going to do, Raven gave you the update on what we're going. I'm going to give you what has been going on in New York State, and later on, her colleague from Julie will give you on what's going on in Connecticut as far as what our youth councils and colleges have been doing to get out the vote. To register to get out the vote, and now we're working on planning on how to educate you, get out and make sure you get out the vote. So what we have had across our state has been, we've had youth councils, especially youth councils and they've been holding voters registration at homecoming games, at high schools, and they've been getting out the vote. Our colleges have been holding voter registration drive, voter education drive. They've been in the street. They got on their social media. Bands. One of the colleges have been going dorm to dorm these last weeks and on the campus, registering, voting, and reminding them to get out to vote. They are hosting programs all next week on the importance of voting and activism fatigue. In addition to that, they will be out in street educating folks. We are hoping to have their database if they have registered people, which is so important. And from that names and registration, they will be using that to do a phone banking and also reminding people to get out and vote. We have youth councils already and some that already have gotten flyers distributed, and they got door hangers to go out and encourage community members to vote. We'll be on the street. They're still registering up until the last day. We will be at City College on Friday evening, registering people to vote. And what we're also doing, we are also educating them. And then the big push is going to be to make sure we go to every dorm, every door, and to make sure we get the people out to vote. So thank you. And they have my contact. You want to know, like Julie, like Raven said, we look forward to hearing what the rest of you are doing, and we look forward to us all to make sure we get out the vote because our lives depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen, and thank you for that update about what y'all are doing. So next, I'd actually like to introduce one of our NAACP youth and college trainers, Jamel Castile. He actually attended a NAACP youth and college electoral boot camp back in, this was in August, where he, along with 19 other young people from across the country, went through an intensive electoral boot camp and learned the ins and outs of electoral action training, from voter registration to GOTV and all that in between. So Jamel, could you just introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, can you hear me? Hello?
Yep, you're good.
Yeah. Greetings, Region 2. My name is Jamel Callis. I'm the president of Unit 29AS in the great state of Pennsylvania. I'm excited to connect with you all and just get into the webinar.
Thank you very much, my brother. So real quickly, an overview of our 2018 goals for our Level Up NAACP turnout campaign. One is to increase voter registration for 18 to 25-year-olds. So when we're thinking about folks who are not registered to vote, particularly, we're thinking about young people, people who often don't turn out. We talk about this term called low propensity voters. And so oftentimes that's young people, that's people of color. As we're ending voter registration this week in many of our states, we're moving from voter registration to making sure that people are educated and are aware about the get out the vote efforts. And so what this allows us to do is to accomplish goal number 2, which is beginning to base build, which allows us to shift relations of power within our own organization as well as within our country. And so we want to make sure as many people are able to turn out on November 6th. The third goal is to educate and turn out all people of color in your community. So making sure that people of color who are in your states, who are in your colleges, who are in your dorms, people you connect with on a day-to-day basis are educated about what's on the ballot and actually turn out to vote. We are 27 days away until the midterm election. And so the closer and closer we get, the more and more work we're doing. I'm seeing a lot of folks doing great work on the ground. Just a quick reminder of some of the voter registration deadlines, right? So this past week, Rhode Island and Pennsylvania hit their voter registration deadlines. New York is coming up the end of this week, Delaware as well, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and then closer to the election day, we have Connecticut, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. And so let's make sure that as we are doing voter registration, we're being aware of these deadlines and what are the efforts that we're doing along the way. So a really quick tidbit is when it was National Voter Registration Day, the NAACP Youth and College Division launched a small link that allowed people to check if they're actually registered to vote. And so I wanted to share this link with y'all to make sure that you're aware of it. But with this link, you can check your voter registration status. Even if you know you're registered to vote, check this link. It'll tell you if you're registered at your updated location. If not, it allows you to actually update your status on the link. And then from there, register to vote. And then feel free to share it with friends. And so this is a link that you can use to quickly get people to register to vote. Again, you got to think creatively about this voter registration stuff. A lot of people are on the go. A lot of young people are busy. And so if folks aren't able to stop and actually talk to you and actually register to vote right on the spot, feel free to share this link with them so they can register online or when they're on the go or in their classroom. I actually was in Ohio a couple of weeks ago. And in Ohio, we had some students who did some class wraps in front of their classrooms and actually dropped the link to everybody in their classroom. And so, again, think creatively about the work that we're doing. So just quickly, again, National Voter Registration Day was September 25th. Folks were registering people all around the country in different ways. People were having voter registration drives. People were having different events in their community, on their campus. People were doing different financial aid workshops and including voter registration. And so when I say think creatively, think about where are places that people are already at and how can you include voter registration into the work that you are already doing. All right, so next I'd like to turn it over to Jamel to do a recap of some voter registration tools.
All right. All right, first and foremost, shout out to Bloomsburg University. But yeah, the first tool that we're going to get into is tabling. With tabling, you want to talk about the campaign in high traffic locations with tables, signage, and other registration material. There's 5 things you want to kind of remember or have on your checklist. You want to be prepared. You want to have things printed out beforehand. You want to have enough of everything, pens, pencils, clipboards, enough volunteers. You just want to make sure that you're prepared for whatever that event or that day throws at you. Number 2, you want to legitimize yourself. You want to make sure you touch base with the school, make sure that you filled out everything that you need to fill out as far as having a table on campus and just making sure that they don't have anything to do with you guys getting your goals done. Number 3, you want to listen. And in listening, you want to exercise what we would call a 75-25 rule. Like we said, there's a reason we have 2 ears and only 1 mouth. And during like one-on-one interactions with which we usually get at tables because we're mixing with diverse groups and just different groups of people who have different perspectives on politics, we should be listening at least twice as much as we talk. We think of this as the 75-25 rule. Your role as an organizer during that 25% of the conversation that you're talking is to ask questions to help you better understand the issues, life stories, and motivations of the other person, as well as to identify and draw connections between the 2 of you. What you want to do there is you just want to make them understand that you guys are on the same level and that the information that you're giving them is pertinent for the both of you. Number 4, you want to agitate. And in the sense of voter registration, that means just to arouse public concern about an issue in hopes of prompting an action. And that action is registering to vote or signing a pledge. And number 5, you want to get a commitment, whether that be them taking the time out to fill an entire voter registration form or just 2 seconds to get their pledge, their phone number, and their name. A couple of other things too. You don't want to just sit behind a table. You want to get out, you want to interact, you want to walk around, you want to use the table to draw attention. I know some units use like candy, chips, other things to draw people in. This past at our activities and involvements fair, Aretha Franklin had just passed, and what we did was we played some Aretha Franklin music, and that kind of drew people in. You know, they were hearing the music, they felt comfortable, they came over, and that's how we kind of broke the ice. So, you know, like Wisdom was saying, you just got to be creative in the ways that you go about engaging with the community. And lastly, you just want to create a script, and that goes perfectly with our next slide. So here at the top of the slide is the overall focus. And the question is, are you registered to vote? And here we have 4 different types of ways or answers that you might receive. The first one is no. And if that's the case, you want to register them. If it's yes, but not at the current address, you want to re-register them. If it's yes, but no confirmation, again, re-register them. And lastly, if it's yes and they've registered and they've done what they need to do, well, then go ahead and get a pledge for your databasing. The second tool I'm talking about is class wraps, which is a short presentation to a classroom of students or a local community meetings. Number 1, you want to get permission. Obviously, you want to ask the teacher if it's okay for you to speak with the class, and just make sure that you touch base. You don't just want to walk in and just start speaking. Maybe the teacher will allot you some time in the beginning of the course, or maybe he or she'll ask you to come back. But you just want to make sure that you touch base with the teacher. You want to be strategic. Basically, you want to know where you're going. You want to be prepared. You want to have your voter pledge cards. You want to have your voter registration sheets. You want to have your pens and pencils, your notepads. Again, you just want to be fully prepared. You want to be able to send different people to different classrooms and probably have them hit different times as well. So don't have the same person going back, because it becomes redundant. A new face, a new message, they'll start to kind of be receptive to what you're trying to get across. Number 3 is to get the point across quickly. We use something called like a CCRC chart, which is pretty much C, credible. You want to be credible, you want to be concise, you want to be relevant, and you want to be compelling. And you just want to try to tie all of those things in with your message. Number 4, you want to get the context and commitments. You want to just take some time out. You make sure you're prepared. You have enough pens and pencils and enough pledge cards or voter registration sheets, and you just hand those out. And then at the end, you just gather those up and you take those for databasing. This is usually the most effective and productive way to do voter registration, is getting it right in the class and just being up front. The next tool we're going to talk about is door knocking. Door knocking can be done on campus and off campus. Door knocking is obviously you go door to door asking folks if they're registered to vote or if they'll pledge to vote. You have 2 types of door knocking. You have targeting knocking and blind knocking, which is kind of exactly what it sounds like. Targeting knocking, you know where you're going. You know the people who are in the rooms that you're visiting. You've probably friends with them, or you have some kind of connection, or you're just in a familiar dorm. Blind knocking is exactly what it seems. You don't know what's going to be behind that door. Dorm storming, like Ms. Blanding was talking about, is probably one of the most popular ways that college students go about door knocking. We get into the residence halls, or we get into the apartment complexes, and we just walk from floor to floor, knocking on doors. In doing that, you want to create a walking list. You want to have floors and you want to have some room routes so that you guys are going in a swift direction, I guess. You want to set goals. You want to try to get at least 30 doors and 5 people to register per hour. With that, you can meet 3 types of people. If they're supportive, you can ask them to sign a pledge. If they're uber supportive, you can ask them to take an even more engaged action on the issues that you've spoken with them about. You can probably have them become potential volunteers, and maybe even have them come out with you on the next door knocking events. If they're undecided, you can kind of work towards understanding why and find a common ground on the issue. And if they're opposed, there's a couple ways you can go. Sometimes people who appear to be opposed can be moved by finding common ground. However, if they're firmly opposed, you should just simply thank them for their time and just leave. You don't gotta beat a dead horse. With phone banking is the quickest way to reach students before and on election day. But in this day and age, not a lot of people give out their phone numbers for you to call them. But it does good when you do have it. It makes it a lot easier. You can just touch base with them and remind them on the issues that you guys have spoken about. Like Raven said, you want to have your database, so maybe you have like a little profile sheet. And you just have a little characteristic by their phone number and something that reminds you of the issues that you guys have spoken about, so that when you call them, you can remind them of those issues and remind them to get out the vote and why they should be voting. Phone banking is just a political strategy to collect voter data critical to the campaign. And this is a little mock, conversation. And this would be just a reply. Let's see. And then we can kind of go on from there. Yeah, so the conversation would kind of go, again, are you registered to vote? If not, you can tell them about upcoming events and locations to where they can register to vote. If they are, but not at the current address, again, re-register them. A lot of times, college students don't really understand that they can register to vote in the county in which they're living, by the university or the college, wherever they go. So a lot of times you just want to reiterate that you should re-register to vote where you're going to school, because 9 times out of 10, those laws will affect you more than the ones back at home. Again, if it's yes but no confirmation, you want to just re-register them. And if it's yes, it's all good. Ask them to do a voter pledge. Ask them to text the NAACP to 40649. And this is just an example of the electoral power volunteer tracking form. It just gives you a pretty much just a layout of different categories. You have your volunteers, your voter coalition, your tabling, your class reps, and your door knocking. Each week you have a goal, and then you have an actual. So it's just again, this is databasing. It's just keeping everything together and structured, so you understand where you are, you understand what your goals are, and then you understand what you actually did that week, so you know what to work on or what you can kind of fall back on and kind of add more effort to whichever other category.
Thank you so much, Brother Jamel. And so these are all things that folks should be using as they're wrapping up voter registration, to make sure that they are getting efficient voter registration cards in, as well as getting information in database, which will actually tie into what I'm about to talk about next. So as soon as you get folks registered to vote, right, you also want to get them to do a pledge card. It's actually illegal to take information straight off a voter registration card. And so it's really important that you have a pledge card or some kind of sign-in sheet where you are collecting information of people who are registered to vote, or people who may be registered to vote already but are pledging to vote. And so if you are on the online application, there is 2 handouts in this presentation. Feel free to download those. One is a pledge card, which you can use, you can print, and you can get folks to write directly on there. They can put their name, their phone number, their email, their address, their city, state, and zip code. And these are informations that you can take and you can database. And I'll talk a little bit about how to database and how to use volunteers efficiently to database. But it's really, really important that when you are doing voter registration, you are also getting people to pledge to vote, and folks who are already good to go, they're already set at their polling place, their information is updated, you're also getting them to pledge. And so when you're databasing your voters, particularly, you can create an Excel sheet. And also in this online application, there's a copy of a simple voter registration database that you can use that has all this information in it as well. But essentially, you want to get things like their name, their year, their major, their email address, their phone number, their address, their mailing address. You want to see what's their registration status, right? You can either, if they're registering to vote right there, you got them registered. If they check to make sure they're registered, you can see what their status is there. And then if they took your voter pledge as well. And then last but not least, you want to be tracking your voter contact, right? And oftentimes we say it takes 5 to 8 times for people to really take in a message. And so you want to be contacting people 5 times through your get out the vote efforts. And so I'll talk a little bit about that and show an example next. So when you're creating your voter database, right, this is a simple, you can make it in an Excel sheet, title with your campus vote database. You're collecting the student names, right, from the pledge cards. You're putting their year and their major. Maybe after November 6th, you want to check out and see, you know, who are what years or what people, either like who's freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors, who are people who are actually registering to vote, or who are the people you're contacting the most. Maybe there's certain people in certain majors that you are having contact better, so that maybe when you run this voter registration drive again, or you do voter contact for 2020, you can see, okay, what areas do you want to improve on and actually target the next time you do this. You have your emails, you have your phone numbers, you have your address, and the key things is, are they registered to vote, right? Have you checked their status? Do they need to update any information? Did they take your voter pledge? If they took your voter pledge, you know, write yes, no. If they're thinking about it, like whatever status they're in. And then what you see at the very right is you have your first contact, right? So the first time you're contacting them and you are registering them to vote, you can write, you know, register to vote them. You got them to register to vote, and you got them to take the voter pledge. Maybe you talked to them over the phone, right? And you were telling them that the election day is November 6th, or early voting starts October 22nd, right? You're going to write that you did a phone banking with them, or you talked to them over the phone, or maybe you texted them. Maybe they came to a tabling event you were at, and you gave them some information about some upcoming debates or any kind of event you're having on campus where you're discussing what's on the ballot. You can write tabling, right? Again, also, if they come to that event, you know, you're writing the event that they came to. If you went to their dorm, you went to their apartment, you went off campus, you talked with them in some sort of way, right? You're going to put that you met them through a door knocking experience, right? So you're recording essentially every way in which you are contacting and working with people, right? And so right there it has contact one, but if you download the Excel sheet, you know, it has contact one, contact two, contact three, contact four, contact five. You can even go up to contact 8. Just the more and more people have contact with you, the more and more likely they are to turn out to vote on November 6th, right? Oftentimes, you go into a room or you go into a classroom and you might ask people when elections are, and folks might not know the date. You know, you might ask people when is the last date to register to vote, and people don't know the date as well. And so constantly giving people that message, constantly making sure people are aware of information is what voter education is about. And I'll talk about that shortly. So some keys to databasing is to make sure you always collect pledge cards, right? So if you have pledge cards that you're using, make sure you always collect those, right? You might pass it out. Make sure you get every single pledge card back. If you don't print pledge cards, have some sort of sign-in sheet, right? So it could either be you can create a Google form where you are also putting name, email, phone number, mailing address, things like that, and you're having people put it in right there at your tabling event or to your event or something like that. Maybe you're passing an iPad around and people putting information in. If not, you know, kick it old school, pencil and paper, and make sure people are writing that information down in a sign-in sheet. But you want to make sure you have that at every single event and that somebody is in charge of collecting that, right? Too often I go to events where people are having sign-in sheets and the sign-in sheet is lost, right? So make sure you have a sign-in sheet that somebody is in charge of and can take back. Again, always get name, phone number, and email at the bare minimum, right? Sometimes people, especially with college students or students in general, people are moving, they live in different places. And so having their name, having their phone number, having their email address is a really great basis just to make sure that you can contact them. Contact them through various forms, right? You don't want to just blow up their email or call them up all the time or text them all the time. You want to think about what are the various ways in which you're interacting with these people so that they get your message across, right? So maybe you send them an email blast at first, and then maybe you invite them to an event and they come to the event. Then later on, you follow up with a phone call with them, and then you send them a text. And then maybe on election day, you invite them to an election day party, right? This is multiple ways in which you've contacted somebody where they've gotten various information that has made it more approachable for them to want to vote on November 6th, right? And so again, like I said earlier, you want to be creative. You want to think about what are the different ways people are interacting with you. Maybe they're seeing posters all around campus. Maybe they're seeing door hangers on their dorms, at their apartments, right? Again, you want to have multiple ways in which you are contacting them. Always invite people to the next upcoming event, right? So if you have a tabling event that you're doing, make sure you let people know what's the next event, what's the next thing that people can come and join you and see you at, right? So if people are registering to vote with you today, let them know, hey, we're gonna go watch a movie on Tuesday and we'll be talking about the elections, or we're going to have an election debate where we have a couple candidates coming in to talk about their stances, or we're going to go through the ballot at our next general body meeting, right? Letting people know what are the next ways people can continue to be involved with you, or asking, people, what is the best way to contact you for next steps, right? Is it better to give you a call? Is it better to email you? Is it better to text you? So there are ways that you can stay up to date with them, right? Maybe you host a phone bank and you call everybody on your list and you're just reminding them, hey, November 6th is the election. I want to make sure that you're going to go out to vote. Do you know your polling place? And we'll talk about a little bit more when we talk about voter education. But letting people know what the next thing is keeps people engaged and allows them to know what are the different things that you are doing along the campaign trail. Last but not least, make sure you use your volunteers to database information at least once a week. So I've been recommending folks to do a digital download Friday or a technology Tuesday where you get at least 10 volunteers together and you collect all your sign-in sheets, or you have your Google form, or you have all your pledge cards, and you just go in and you put the information in. I know sometimes it can be tedious entering information one by one, but it's going to be very, very important because you're tracking exactly how you're contacting somebody. You can see in what ways people are being reached and what ways people aren't being reached, right? So maybe there's people who are constantly in your network, constantly coming to your table that you're interacting with, and they're good, but other people's, you got them to register to vote, but you haven't talked to them since day one. And so you want to make sure you follow with them sooner than later, right? Especially when we get closer and closer to elections, you want to make sure that people who are considered low propensity voters, again, young people and people of color, are contacted so they know exactly where to go to vote and know exactly what's on the ballot so they're more informed. So I'm going to go over next some voter education tools that you can use. So being part of the NAACP, we are a nonpartisan organization. And so what that means is that we don't support or oppose any candidate. And so essentially what we're doing when we do voter education is that we're letting people know the when, the where, and the how of voting, right? We're also letting people know what's on the ballot so that they're more informed about the ballot that's actually coming up on November 6th, and they know what's actually happening either in their county or in their state, or things that are going to potentially affect them on the ground level. And so we want to make sure that people are aware about what's on the ballot, and if that's by giving them sample ballots, if that's giving them information, inviting them to forums. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, but you just want to make sure people are aware as possible. So the when, where, and how voting. Essentially, you want to be able to give people opportunities on your campus just to be informed about the election, right? What is the day of the election, right? I keep letting people know November 6th, November 6th, November 6th. It's just, it's kind of ingrained into my brain at this point, making sure that people are constantly hearing that date and are constantly aware that that's coming up. You want to let people know about early voting periods. Like, what are those dates as well, right? A lot of people don't know about early voting periods, and knowing that you can get started on those as soon as possible. And so letting people know what those early voting periods. Maybe you're posting something on your Instagram page. Maybe you're putting flyers around campus. Maybe you're just giving announcements during tabling, right? Again, all the tools that Jamel talked about earlier, those also can be used for get out the vote, right? You can still, after voter registration over, you can still table and let people know about early voting periods. You can still table and let people know about your next event. You can let people know about their polling place. Maybe, you say, hey, come to the quad or come to the quarry and check out where your polling place is. Or maybe you plan a trip to the polling place so people know exactly where to go, right? I know in a lot of places people don't have the best access to their polling place. So maybe even brainstorming what are ways in which you're going to give people rides, right? Maybe having people sign up for rides ahead of time to get to their polling place. Again, think creatively about what ways you can make sure that people turn out. And I kind of always talk about this, right? If you get 1,000 people to register to vote and only people 2 turn out, what was good? What was the good use in that work, right? And so making sure that you are tracking the people and giving people opportunities to make sure they turn out on November 6th. So just giving people information about registration deadlines and how to register online. Another example is making short videos with people from your constituents or staffs on why they think voting is important. So I don't know if folks have seen the Power of Five campaign that we've been running with the NAACP, but this is an example of getting a couple folks together and just talking about the influence and the power of voting.
I've got 5.
I've got 5. And I've got 5 too.
So do I.
What? About $5? I don't get paid till Friday.
What? No, we're not talking about money. We're talking about moving people to the polls for elections.
And I'm talking about registering 5 people to vote. And I'm volunteering 5 days between now and election day.
And I'm canvassing for 5 days.
Okay, well then I'll text 5 friends and remind them to vote.
Good. Because election day is coming up super fast.
And the time for action is now. Claim your power.
Use your networks.
Use your phones.
You need to go vote.
We all need to go vote. On November 6th, use your power.
Your power of 5.
Text POWER to 40649 to get involved.
Right. So this is a really good way that you can use people in your unit, people on your campus, people who maybe have influence or a great network that will reach people to just get across the message of it's important to vote and why voting is going to help folks in the long term. And so I definitely want to encourage people to be creative, to create videos. Region 5 recently put out a video encouraging people to get 5 people to vote. Making sure 5 people are turning out, making sure that you're texting 5 people. And so, I kind of want to issue a challenge, like, Region 2, where we at? Let's see what videos are going to come out during this next time, and let's be creative. Last but not least, we want to talk about what's on the ballot. So giving people nonpartisan voter guides and sample ballots, right? So right there's a really good website at the NAACP. We actually have state-by-state voter guides where people can actually download the voter guide for your state. And so feel free to check that out, download those. If you want people to know what's on the ballot, this is another good website people can use. And again, this presentation will be sent out to everybody here on the call. And so you don't need to rush to write it down. You'll definitely have access to this presentation afterwards. But you can go into the website, put in your address, put in your email, and it'll tell you exactly who's running in the races, what are the propositions that are on the ballot, and what are the things specifically for your county, for your state. If you choose to have any activities where you're having candidate forums or you're having candidate questionnaires or you're having people come and speak, definitely be very careful and make sure that you are staying neutral and equal for both parties of people, right? Again, we're a nonpartisan organization, and it's really important that we are allowing people access to both sides of the information, right? Because I think what we believe is that the more and more people are educated about stuff, the more and more people will be influenced to make the right decisions. So this is what our voter guides look like. It tells you the voter ID requirements, right? It tells you the voter registration deadlines. It tells you if there's early voting or what the dates for early voting are. It tells you how to turn in an absentee ballot and the dates for that. It tells you the requirements to vote in your state. It also tells you, right, oftentimes we ask, if somebody has a felony or somebody has been convicted, what are the rules? And oftentimes that is dictated state by state. And so it's very, very important that we know exactly what state has which rules. So again, definitely check us out at our NAACP.org resources state voter guide site to get the information for your state. All right. So next, I'd like to pass it over to the folks at the Connecticut State Youth and College Conference. They're going to be talking about a little bit what they've been doing in terms of voter registration and voter mobilization, as well as the work they've been doing on the ground.
Thank you so much, Wisdom. This is Julie Jones. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, all right, great. So thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to share very quickly what we've been doing in our small but mighty state of Connecticut. I am joined with Antoinette Badillo, who's our state youth and college president, and Akia Collum, who's our first vice president. So we've really been tying a lot of our GOTV efforts to our membership efforts as well. And one thing we've found that has been very successful for us is first just getting folks to become members and be active. So what we've done is we've put together a calendar of all of our unit meetings across the state. And our president, Antoinette, who's going to speak after me, she has made an effort to get to every single meeting that she's possibly can. Granted, we're a smaller state, so getting from point A to point B in Connecticut's been a lot easier, but having her at all of those meetings has been effective for 2 reasons. One, she's been able to let the units know exactly what the NAACP is, what our goals and our objectives are, and why it's important to be registered to vote. And so having someone who's young, who's relevant, who looks like you, and who can speak to exactly what you're dealing with on a college campus has worked for us getting and engaging our units. Again, both to be members and to be registered voters. So one, we have made, as a youth and college division, we've sat down and we've put together our goals. And so our recruitment and retention strategy really focused on digital engagement. So meeting people where they are. Our demographics primarily on social media. So everything that the national office, Wisdom and his amazing team, Tiffany and everyone on that team has put together on the NAACP Instagram and the youth and the other youth in college Instagram, we've really just taken that and have adapted it to make it relevant to Connecticut. So the voting registration deadlines and things like that, we've used those social assets to put on our own Instagram page. And believe it or not, we have probably 5 or 6 people who will DM us a day who are interested in becoming registered members. So right there, that's something very easy. We're aligning with our national office, and we're really getting the attention of young voters. And so our digital engagement, we do that also through email and then on-campus events. So aside from putting together the calendar of when all of our units meet, we've also tried to do our best to keep a calendar of when different schools have large events. So like back to school, freshman move in, we've been able to be on campus and have a presence. So again, we've been able to get a lot of these folks to become members of the NAACP, as well as to vote, and then educate them on why it's important. So it's really killing 2 birds with 1 stone, because as my colleague Jamil, I believe his name is, as he said earlier, it's the creative things that will get people to want to hear what you have to say. So setting up a great table, playing music, talking to people, meeting them where they are, and talking to them about issues that are important to them. So if you sit down and as a youth and college division, you come up with maybe 3 or 5 really, really important issues to college students, when you go out, you already have your script to talk from, right? And so that brings me to, I'll wrap up my portion with the message. Having a really consistent message has been helpful for us, because the same people who are seeing us on social media, we're then inviting them to come to our conventions. We're inviting them to come to our freedom funds. We're working with the adult units to offset a lot of those costs. So one thing that we are very fortunate in the state of Connecticut to have is a good partnership with our adult units and our adult branches. So that way, a lot of the adult units will sponsor youth to come and attend these, like, again, freedom funds, meet the candidates, and different GOTV events like that. So that way, if a student can't pay, $100 to be at a freedom fund, they can at least have an adult unit sponsor them, and they can get educated on the NAACP. They can get educated on who's running on the ticket, and they hopefully are already registered to vote. But if they're not, they can do that as well, because any event we have, we always make sure we have a voter registration table. So that'll segue into Antoinette Baidio. She's going to talk a little more about her and Aki are going to talk a little more about our large day of action, which we just had on National Voter Registration Day, and how we're aligning that with the Level Up campaign. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. Hope everyone can hear me. So pretty much like what Julie was stating before, my mission was to really reach out to all the youth and college units across the state. I think it was very important for me to at least go to their first general meeting to let them see my face, to do the chant, which I love, so and they enjoy it. Just to help get them motivated and let them know that even though I'm just a state officer, I'm there to support them and because I was also undergrad and I was also in the same position they were. So I just always like to show support and going out there and trying to go to as many meetings as possible. I think it helps encourage them and motivates them to continue doing the great work that they're doing. Another way for me to help organize is the communication. I don't like to just send out emails. I like to personally call the advisors, call the presidents, the secretary, just to make sure that the one receiving the emails, understanding what we are doing in regards to the national level and also locally. So I just want to make sure that it's fluid and they are staying on task and doing what the action items they have for their semester, and making sure that we know the events they're doing, the debates, educating them on voter registration in the Power of Five, of course. And with all that, it's just building a strong relationship. I really seen that by me knowing them personally, one-on-one, knowing their name, really has helped the units grow because we became more like family. And so on top of that, when we organize, we try to do the convention, which is coming up on the 20th, and we're very excited. But with that, we try to make sure that we're doing trainings that they can go home back to their units and utilize, giving them materials that they can help educate their own units, and as well as voting kits that that Jamel was also talking about earlier, the important things that they need to effectively do voter registration on campus or in their community. And so as of right now, that's how we've been trying to organize and how we've been growing. And just as of recently, we just found out we have 3 more colleges that are trying to be either chartered or reactivated. So we are doing something right. And so Wisdom, you try to challenge us, and we are definitely going to turn up and turn out at our convention and post pictures. So I'm going to let Akia go and talk about the GOTV.
Hey guys, so like Julie and Antoinette already spoke. Can you guys hear me? I think you guys can.
Yes.
Like how Julie and Antoinette already spoke about, our main focus is about providing backbone support to our youth and college units. So we recently just had our day of action, which was actually brought up by one of our vice presidents on a state conference level, and we spoke about 3 strategic methods. So alignment, the 5 W's basically, who, what, where, and how to impact your community on a surface level. And so we're talking about organizations. Is your organizations in your local region having events so that you can align with them to have voter registration drives there? Your churches, how successful is your adult branches if you do alignments with them at their Freedom Fund luncheons? And also aligning with societal issues, with shifting the narrative of my vote doesn't matter to these elected officials are employed by our votes, and how our votes are their power. So access, so voter access, how are we going to get them to the polls as well? So I know sometimes it's hard for college students to actually think about voting, especially if you're not from that actual college area. So having absentee ballot days and figuring out how to get sponsored stamps. Also, speaking to the recruitment aspect, the Power of Five is actually a really good tool. And after utilizing the first method from the webinar, our day of action goal was actually to have each of our units do 50 voter registrations at minimum from now until, well, from August until November 6th to get to our 500. Also, like Internet Harry spoke about, us being backbone support, we'll be providing resources for our units when they come to state convention on October 20th. And it's just exciting to get people involved and actively engaged on a level that one relates to us, because a lot of times now we're looking at society and we're realizing that there's a lot of impact, but also understand that we also have power. So I think that's all that I have to say for you guys. Good organizations to align with the sororities on your campus, the churches, even other social organizations as well, like Urban League. And like, why recreate the wheel when you guys could just do it together collaboratively? That we're all looking to attain the same goal. So I think that's all I have to say. Thank you guys for listening to what we had to say, and hopefully it was impactful and you guys could actually emulate that on your campus.
Thank y'all so much for your leadership in Connecticut, and thank y'all for being able to be on this call and just give so much great advice and, dare I say it, wisdom for Region Two. I really appreciate y'all being able to be on this call and just let us know what's happening in your state. And again, I'm here and supporting y'all again with resources. We're coming out with the website. We're working on with making sure that everything that we are putting out, people have access to. So again, like I said before, this presentation will be sent out to everybody who was on the webinar, who registered for the webinar. Feel free to share it. We'll be hopefully uploading these. The webinars are also recorded, and so hopefully we'll be uploading these soon onto our website as well, so folks can go back and check them out as well. But right now, if you have a question from any part of the webinar, feel free to drop a question below in the question box. Again, real quick, I just want to let folks know about some of the upcoming webinars. We had our Region 2 tonight. This coming Sunday, we're talking about some more voter contact, early voting, and hopefully some election protection stuff, which is also very important. Region 1 is coming up the following Wednesday. I really want to urge people to be on the webinar Sunday, October 21st, because we're talking about GOTV weekend and what y'all are planning out for GOTV weekend. And we're going to have hopefully some guest speakers on that call as well. So I really want to urge people to turn out for that webinar. We'll be ending with our Region 4 webinar on October 24th. And then we'll be having our last final call to action on Sunday, October 28th. And so again, please turn out for those webinars in blue, which are our national webinars. And then right after elections on Wednesday, November 7th, we'll be having an electoral results webinar where we'll be debriefing the different tools that people used along the campaign trail and what worked and what the results were after the elections. So right now, again, we're going to go into some question and answers. Again, if you have other questions, feel free to email us at youthandcollege@naacpnet.org. In an hour after the webinar is over, you'll be getting an email with a link to a survey, which is just a small evaluation so we can continue to better our webinars. But if you don't get your question answered here, definitely feel free to drop a question in that survey and we will get back to you hopefully within the next week. So I'm going to take a look at some of the questions. I actually have somebody who has some input. Nazea, who is actually one of our NAACP Youth and College trainers, actually has some suggestions about how to get people to vote. So I'm going to unmute him right now. Naz, can you hear me?
Yeah, hello?
Yeah, you're on speaker.
So I just want to say something real quick. So, I feel like as youth that are politically sound, we tend to forget how it sounds on the other end. So, I just urge you all to be as authentic as possible when like approaching, how can I put it? Like other youth, because as youth, we can basically spot when like something is like rehearsed or, oh, you know, they're just going around and it's the same pickup line, it's the same everything. So a big way to kind of like get people more involved and things like that is to how can I put it? Be transparent. Like find like a common interest with them and like what you want to see change and educate them on, you know, like what like our I'm really trying to figure out like how can I put this. So from like the youth that I speak to, they don't know what power our officials have. Like they don't know what they're like really like in control of. So that's something big to like really educate them on. And basically, like I said, try to be as transparent as possible. Don't use like the same line with everybody because everybody's individuals. So that's basically all I want to say.
For sure. Thank you, Naz. Appreciate that a lot. Jamel, do you want to talk a little bit about your upcoming state convention in PA?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to thank you guys for allowing me to moderate tonight. But I just wanted to talk briefly about the Pennsylvania State Convention that we're having on the 20th of this month. I'm in Bethlehem, if anybody in Pennsylvania is on the call right now, which I hope a lot of people are, yeah, I hope to see you guys in Bethlehem. We're looking to mobilize and educate and move the state forward. We're trying to get back on a good foot, and add another great state to Region 2. And for Region 2, also, like Wisdom, I'm challenging us to just get closer. Region 5 is definitely probably one of the closest regions that I've seen up close. Everywhere they go, they're pretty strong. So I'm just urging us to kind of do the same, stay connected, network with each other, reach out to each other, communicate with each other. Some people may think that the association is losing its relevancy, but if they see us coming together and visiting each other on different campuses and just being genuine with each other, then that might spark some interest in the association as well. So yeah, please I'm urging us to just get closer and let's work harder on the goals of the association. That's it.
Thank you so much, Jamel. Appreciate that. Any last questions before we wrap up?
Hey, Wisdom. This is Julie again. I just dropped it in our Region 2, what is this, like a group chat? I just dropped it in there, but please follow us in Pennsylvania, New York. Please make sure we're all following each other on Instagram. I dropped our ctnaacp.yc. I think that's a fantastic way to info share, get ideas for events and things alike. So if we're not following you, please drop your, your, what do you call it, like your @name, if you will, so that way we can make sure we're following you and make sure we're up to date on what you guys have going on. And as someone said earlier, it's not always about inventing the wheel, but sometimes it's just adopting and adapting what other units are doing. So thank you.
That's super real. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, Julie. Today I actually went through our Instagram account on our NAACP Youth in College, and I actually looked at all the schools or youth and college units within Region 2 that had an Instagram page that was following our NAACP Youth and College Division. And I actually came up with about, I think, 25 to 30 different handles of folks in Region 2 who have Instagram pages. And so I definitely can share that with y'all after this call and make sure that, again, I definitely want to encourage that and second that collaboration. How can you connect with other people? Because when you connect with other folks, you begin to build solidarity and don't feel as alone in this work. And so also that's coalition building, right? You can begin to build power and see folks actually on the ground who are in your state doing a lot of the similar things and some good ideas. Another thing real quick, if you are interested in having Jamil or Naz or some of the other folks that we have within our network in terms of our youth and college trainers, we actually will be, you can contact them directly, but we'll actually be having some request forms go out pretty soon. And so if you need folks who you want folks to come out to your campus, train on the ground, you want to host a session with people where Jamil and Naz and other folks can actually be a part of your campus on the ground and actually do one-to-one trainings with folks in your unit, definitely feel free to email us, let us know that, and we will get you in contact with them as soon as possible. All right, so we are wrapping up on this call. Did any of our panelists want to say any last things before we wrap up?
Thank you guys for the opportunity again, and I just hope and look forward to connecting with you all.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for all being on this call, this webinar tonight. Definitely very successful. I'm seeing all the likes, I'm seeing all the love. I appreciate that. I definitely am seeing Region 2 do that work. I'm seeing all the posts and things like that. And so let's continue to keep up the energy. As my brother Nas says, keep the pace. And so it's very, very important that we keep pushing forward. So thank you all for being here tonight. Again, shortly, about an hour, you'll get an email just to submit an evaluation for the webinar tonight. And then tomorrow, you will be receiving a copy of this presentation as well. And so I hope all you have a good night and take care. Oh, Raven wanted to say something really quickly before we wrap up. Raven, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Raven?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Before we all leave off this call really quickly, I just want to say thank you to everyone that helped make this call possible. Thank you for everyone being on this call. I really appreciate it. Just hearing everyone speak about coming together and doing this work for the organization and coming together as a region really makes me happy and excited because I really want our region to prosper. I know we are a big region, however, we have small representation right now, and I want to increase that with amongst all of us. So thank you to all of the Connecticut representation, all of the Pennsylvania representation. Thank you, Ms. Blandon. Thank you to Wisdom and all the national staff for just putting us together and letting us all have this space to be here and to learn about civic engagement and do the work of the association. And good luck, everybody, and get out to the polls and have a good week.
Thank you so much, Raven. I appreciate that. All right, and with that, we're going to end our webinar. Definitely check out and stay posted for the webinars that are coming up later. And take care, y'all.
Peace.